Now we're going to go on to actually putting a pattern on the side of the cake, and I'm going to do this by getting a piece of paper and cutting it to size. So now I've put my cake up on a turntable and I've actually cut a paper pattern out of some greaseproof paper so that it's the same height and the same circumference as the cake. Take it off and do some paper folding. Fold it down, and I've now folded it into quarters. Fold it one more time and then cut a slight curve. You can, of course, draw on it and get your line if you want to. Then you just pin this into place, lining up your corners. Always remember, if you are going to pin it, that you pin it somewhere where you're actually going to cover it. And as I'm going to put frills on this cake, I'm going to pin it quite high because the frills will cover it. I'm now going to do some crimping. Put the teeth in just above your paper pattern. That's only there to give you a guideline. So go into the depth of the teeth, crimp together, release very slightly and come out. Remember, as you're going round a curve, you might actually need to change the position in your hand so that you can bring it up. And when you go down the other side of the curve, you might need to change it back again. When you do crimp, don't let go, because that's the sort of thing that happens. Now, if that sort of thing happens, remember your paste is still soft and you must do your crimping while it is soft. You can't leave it for 2 or 3 days to do this. You must do it within half an hour. If you crimp and you don't release, you'll pull the piece of paste out. So if you do that, just put it back in again. Just give it a little bit of a rub again so that you can get it back together and crimp it. Now you'll know where the mistake is, but nobody else will. Now this is a cake that has actually been crimped with a pattern right around it. I've done a shell along the border with royal icing that I have coloured with the peach colour, and the shells are done exactly the same way as we did them on the royal icing section of the programme. But now, to finish this one off, I'm going to show you how to make some frills. For this you need some of your sugar paste. Always keep it covered, remember, when you're not using it. And this time I'm going to roll it out very thin. I've got a little bag of little muslin bag of corn flour, and it makes it sieve out very finely. Now I can use corn flour when it comes to rolling frills because it's not going to be in contact with the marzipan, and so you've got no problems with it fermenting. Right, so just put that under there and that under there. Now we cut from the centre another circle. Now you don't have to have a scalloped cutter for this. The actual frilling technique is done with a cocktail stick, and you'll find that you can get these in any supermarkets. Right, it's a very expensive tool, this one. Put your cocktail stick onto the edge of the frill. Keep your finger about 1/4 of an inch away from the cut edge and roll it. Now you will have to make sure you've got plenty of corn flour underneath so that it will frill up. Now the harder you roll it, the more it will frill. The lighter you roll it, the less it will frill. And it is much easier to frill if your paste is as thin as this. If you find that you're cutting the paste as you try to roll it, you just haven't got it thin enough. So just roll it out again, cut it, and try once more. Open it out, and now I'm going to stick it to the cake using a little bit of water. Dampen the cake where you're going to put it, which is just underneath your crimping. Pick up the frill onto your hand, and then just very gently lay it against the side of the cake. On the practice board that I've got here, I've got a variety of different types of frills with different types of finishes, but in fact the actual frilling is done exactly the same way as I've just shown you. Now here you can actually see that I've actually inserted some ordinary ribbon into the frills, and this is a technique that I'll actually be showing you on one of the other programs. Also, you might have noticed on the crimper patterns that I had put a little bit of ribbon into that as well. Now we're going back to finish this cake, and I'm going to change them over, and you can see that this one, I have 2 frills on it, done exactly the same way as I have just shown you. And I have in fact used a modelling tool just to push the paste into the crimper pattern, and that's what gives me this effect along here. To finish off the top with a very simple design, I'm just going to use a little 4-inch card. It could be a tin or whatever you happen to have, a saucer, just something to give you a guideline, and I'm actually just going to scribe around the top of the cake. Just gives me a guideline to follow. I'll use up these spare frills that I have, and I'm going to cut some little flowers. Now for this you need a piece of foam sponge, and if you dust it with your corn flour so that the little flowers don't stick, use your plunger cutter, and I hold it with my thumb and my second finger. Cut, lift, wipe the bottom of the cutter so you don't have any furry edges to your flower. Position it just above the sponge and push down, and it cups the flower for you. I'm just going to pipe a little line, just a short one. Then I'm going to pipe a dot. I'm going to very carefully pick up one of these little flowers, and in fact, if you've got the time, it's much better to let them dry before you attempt to pick them up. Another little dot, and perhaps I'll put a little flower on this one. And I'm just piping another little dot into the centre, and then just finish it off with a few little leaves. Now these are piped just the same way as you would pipe a shell. Push out and then pull off. So that's this cake finished. It's got the frills on it, it's got the little flowers on it, and as I think you'll all agree, it's rather a pretty cake.